Hi everyone, Michelle from Holistic Pillars. Welcome back. Today I'm honoured to have Tracey McBeath here chatting to me. We're doing a three-part series, so please tune into all three parts because they're fantastic. The first one was about Tracey and her journey with health and becoming a health coach. This chat, we're going to have a little talk through the low carb experience and the benefits of low carb. And Tracey's going to finish us off with some top tips. And in the third part of the series, we're going to be chatting through health coaching and beyond nutrition, not just being about nutrition. So hi, Trace. Welcome back. Part two.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me. Excited to be back again.
So you and I are aligned. We both had our own health journeys. We both really have adapted the low carb living. And I just want to be able to talk about what is low carb living. What exactly is it? Can you please explain?
Yeah, well, I guess the easiest way I like to explain what is low carb to people is basically it's all about eating real food. So that is the basis really of any optimal diet is minimizing eating processed foods and foods that contain things that we know are not really good for us in, high quantities over long periods of time. And those things like sugar, vegetable oils, for a lot of people, things like wheat and gluten and things like that can impact our health as well. So the easiest way is just to not think of it in terms of a diet, but much more of a lifestyle. So it's just eating real food, consuming moderate amounts of protein, particularly good quality animal source protein, which is much more, the body loves it much more than they do plants. So any protein in plants has to go through a series of conversions in the body for the protein to be able to be optimized. And then of course it's got other factors in it that can be harmful to our health as well. So optimizing protein, not fearing fat, that's the big one, because most of us have been convinced wrongly that fat, particularly saturated fat, is very bad for our health and, going to give us a heart attack. But that's based on very poor and no science at all, really. Fat is actually saturated fat, coming particularly from animals, is essential for our body and our brain. It fuels us, makes us feel good, it helps with repair, and it's just a really important part. Not sitting there and eating a block of butter, but just enjoying fatty cuts of meat, enjoying some butter, enjoying an avocado, not buying low fat dairy products, and thinking that you can eat as much as you like because there's no fat in it, because we know when they take fat out of a product that tastes like cardboard, so they have to add in something to give it taste, and that would be sugar. So it's really, it's not really difficult. I think we love to overcomplicate things, and I think sometimes labels can make things confusing for people. But if we pare it back to the basics, it's just going back to eating really an optimal human diet, a diet that we evolved to eat. I mean, the food pyramid is about pushing food industry on to the human population, and what we've been consuming since the 70s is not what we were consuming before that. And of course we've seen the rapid rise in so many chronic diseases because of that. So it's just peeling it all back, thinking about what did your grandmother have, bacon and eggs for breakfast, and sweets were once a week, maybe a homemade apple pie or something like that. I mean, it was just really just what you could grow, what you could buy locally, what is coming directly from something that is a whole food. That's really what low carb is.
Absolutely. Now I might be getting a little bit technical, but then we go into metabolic health. Now you and I know that it can solve for things like diabetes, heart disease, all sorts of metabolic issues. I guess I'm trying to, what would that be? So I, for example, have lost weight. I've cleared eczemas. I am no longer pre-diabetic. I have lowered my cholesterol levels, all by adapting a low carb lifestyle. So can you just explain that a little bit more, like insulin resistance, metabolic health for everybody?
Yeah. So it's really something that is a lot of people don't really understand. Even a lot of doctors don't understand that metabolic health is so important. And it's really mostly dictated by what we eat. So it's our body's ability to create energy at a metabolic level. So we have two fuel sources within the body. They work side by side. The body has an amazing ability to determine which one is best, whether that comes from fat or whether that comes from glucose. So really what we eat is going to determine the predominant fuel source within the body. So what happens is if we eat what we're told to eat from childhood, which is we go from this natural state of being in ketosis. So babies are born, fat burners, if you like. And then they get put on carbohydrates through rice cereals and, sweetened products. So we become very much a sugar burner from a very, very young age. Now, over time, because every time we eat sugar or carbohydrate, which what people don't really understand when we consume it. So we're talking here about breads, pastas, cereals, some fruit, rice. Once we consume it, it converts to glucose within the bloodstream. Now, anything in our body over 1 teaspoon of sugar, it can cause damage. So it's considered toxic to the body. So the body gets to work through a hormone called insulin to get all of that out of our blood and into our muscle cells, our fat cells, and our liver. So basically what happens is over time, that process just doesn't work as well. So it's very dependent. There's it's a progressive. It's not something that, will happen overnight, but over a longer period of time, insulin, it becomes insulin resistant. So like anything, like if you, if someone is a drinker, they over time have to drink more and more to get the same effect. Well, over time, insulin has to pump out more and more and more to get that same effect. So to get all that sugar out of our blood. And then, of course, what happens is it develops a condition called hyperinsulinemia, where insulin is just high all the time in our body. And that is not a good thing to happen. And, insulin resistance it's considered the precursor to all modern diseases, type 2 diabetes, cancers, heart disease, a lot, Alzheimer's, dementia. There's a lot of it is linked back to insulin resistance. So it's really what we're trying to do is trying to avoid that happening to our body so it can function metabolically at a cellular level well for us. So it's kind of, it is a complex topic. It's not, it's not black and white. I mean, you don't sort of get insulin resistance, as I said, overnight, but there's definitely signs. You will get, people get signs within their body way before they'll get a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. And that might start with things like weight gain, particularly around the middle. Fatty liver is usually a pretty good early sign of insulin resistance. And all of these come together to a condition called metabolic syndrome. So high blood pressure, fatty liver, fat around the middle. Insulin not working well. Things like snoring. What else? Little things like dark patches on our skin tags, feeling tired all the time. Really early sign of metabolic dysfunction, if you like, is that blood sugar roller coaster. When we get crashes, we crash really quickly and we get what's called hangry. We just have to eat. Our body isn't hungry, but at a cellular level, it's just driven by this quick fix of glucose. So, we create this, shakes. We have to eat now, otherwise we're going to, collapse. And that is a really, that's a really an early sign that blood sugar is dysregulated. But you can switch it all around. And as I said, if we look at our body being fueled by what we eat. So if we eat mostly protein and fat, we're going to be fueled by more of that. If we eat sugars, we're going to be fueled by that sugar. And, you know, there's very limited storage capacity of sugar and glucose within our body. It runs out very quickly, hence the need to eat regularly to keep, you know, us going. But when we can switch it over and become what's termed a fat burner, well, we all know most of us have a pretty good storage of energy in terms of fat on our bodies. Even the leanest person has a huge amount of that storage. And we become, you know, we get off that blood sugar roller coaster. You know, I know for me, you know, that was one of the biggest benefits of making the switch. I just started to really important to know, though, is this term of metabolic flexibility. Sometimes we eat sugars, sometimes we eat fat. We've really got to, you know, accept that, you know, history has, you know, caused, you know, quite a bit of dysfunction within our body. So we really need to be a little bit more stricter, I guess, than some people who are younger and maybe, you know, don't have the health issues. They can be a little bit more flexible around their diet than someone who might be older and already have conditions like type 2 diabetes. You did freeze there for a bit. Did you lose me?
Yeah, I did. I froze. I did. You did. You froze for a bit. Did I freeze?
Yeah, you were frozen for most of that. That's why I was sort of like.
We'll see what happens, because it did freeze probably 30 seconds, but that's okay. If I ask something that you've already answered, that's not a bad thing. So yeah, we're talking about.
I was rambling anyway.
No, never ramble. Metabolic flexibility. So we're fat adapted. I play around with a lot of different ways. We've had our CGMs on, which is your glucose monitor. I know you did a great experiment during COVID last year about blood glucose, and you had the monitor on for how long was that? About a month?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
No, just 2 weeks.
Oh,
yeah.
just 2 weeks. And then basically you were experimenting on those spikes with what you're eating, and it was frightening. And I know that we can refer people back to your records of that experiment. It was actually frightening. I did a very similar one around about the same time. So we're fat adapted. I can go in and out of eating some carbs, and I adjust pretty quickly, and you would be exactly the same. But I know that being low carb, there is those different levels. So we can go low carb, healthy fats. We can go into ketosis, so really low. We can be a little bit higher in our carbs. For some people, that they're adapted well. Then there's this whole new world, Trace, that is a little bit of a touchy subject, but for some people, not for us, but carnivore. So I want to go down the realms of carnivore, where we don't eat any vegetables whatsoever. Now, we have experimented with carnivore and I love it. I think it's fantastic. But you had your own health issues last year, and I want to just talk to people about that. So do you want to talk about your Hashimoto's and diagnosis and your treatment for that?
Yeah, sure. So so I was May last year. I started to get I started to observe some hot flushes, what I thought were hot flushes, and I started to not sleep as well as I had been. So I thought I was, hitting menopause. So I went to get checked out, get some blood tests, and they picked up Hashimoto's, it sort of threw me into a bit of a world of, okay, because the doctor I went to see was a functional doctor, and I just wanted to go to a functional doctor to really get the right blood tests for my menopause, which it wasn't menopause. And of course, she said, look, explain to me what was going on and why I had it. And she said, look, you really got to go and eat the rainbow and go and eat a whole lot of vegetables. And, I sort of thought, well, actually, it doesn't really make sense to me to do that. I had already been exploring carnivore because I had a few clients that were wanting to do it. I wasn't doing it myself. I was still keto, if you like. But I think it's I had this openness to it, not when I first heard it. The first time I heard it, was when Dr. Sean Baker was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and my husband Jim told me about it. And I'm like, what a load of crap, What? How could you possibly be healthy without any vegetables? And I, did what most brains do when they come across something that is different to what we believe and what we think we know. I dismissed it. But, curiosity again got the better of me, and I started to explore it. And then that was a couple of years before I got the diagnosis. So I think it just happened, and I was like, right, literally that next day I'm going to do it. And then I started working with a naturopathic doctor as well. And she, I spent 6 months with her, kind of going through the diet side of things and really getting that. And also we went a lot deeper as well into stuff, we've talked about in the first chat. But look, the benefits of a carnivore diet really is because what we know about autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's is they do stem from the gut. And, with Hashimoto's, the body and the immune system is basically attacking my thyroid wrongly. So there's, the whole mechanism behind it is, quite complex. And it looks very different in anybody, in everybody. But really, if we want to manage the condition, because what we know too is autoimmune can often lead to more. And I certainly didn't want to keep going down that cascade. So I really wanted to try and manage it. And look, I don't think I thought I could heal it, but just more manage, learn about it, understand it, and just try and keep it at bay. I think, sometimes we can't heal everything. And I never went on medication because my symptoms were never that bad. Either. So, mine is probably considered a mild, there's certainly people who have it much more severe than I do, but mine, and I think my metabolic health had really saved me with that. My mum and my grandma, there's definitely an element of genetics involved in these type of conditions, and they usually are developed in the womb. So what my mother ate and the condition of her gut while I was in her stomach impacted me. It's no blame. It's just understanding, we're most of us are born today with sub-functioning guts and microbiomes really, which means that they're really susceptible to what we eat and to diet and, even chemicals, pollutions, so many things can impact our gut. But, really what we want to avoid is just a leaky gut where, stuff just does leak through the body. And things that we know do that are gluten. I think most people accept gluten and wheat and sugar as being the big three. I mean, that's the minimum of, really trying to keep our gut and microbiome healthy. But then we get to things like oxalates and lectins, which are in vegetables, particularly a lot of the low carb keto vegetables like the spinach and the cauliflower and all the greens, the kale and all that stuff, which I had eaten a lot of. But those vegetables contain these things called the anti-nutrients, and basically what they are is toxins in the plant to protect the plant because they don't have a capacity to run away. And something like a fruit, which is sweet, the way they sort of reproduce is they want to be eaten. So they want things to eat them so that they then poop out the seeds and, more grows. But these other plants, they don't want to be eaten. They have a protective mechanism. They reproduce in other ways. And, that then can cause issues and damage. And I think, it's an element of I had this susceptibility. I have a gene which makes me susceptible to this type of condition. So then you layer on that diet. And I didn't know for the first 40 years of my life that, you know, what I was eating was impacting my gut and causing the kindling to light the fire. But then, of course, you can have all that. Some people can have all that and still be okay. But then you throw in stress, and stress is a really big, usually that's what triggers it in the end. So whether that's internal stress from eating things that your body is just, you know, it's not optimal on your body. So it creates an internal stress when your body's, you know, always trying to keep you healthy and get you back to health. You know, like insulin resistance is a classic internal stress, or an external stress, you know. So for me, 5 children, often having a child can trigger it, a divorce, you know, you're losing someone that you love, a death or something like that can trigger. So really an emotional, you know, an emotional trigger that comes into our via our nervous system into our body, which then just can create the perfect storm to set something like this off. Yeah, so that's why I went carnivore, and I was very strict for 6 months. I had a lot of adjusting with my gut for the first month in particular, which is very, very common. Anytime we make dietary changes, you know, our gut will kick and scream a little bit and do different things. But once I settled into it, you know, look, I just absolutely loved it. I did take out dairy. I miss dairy, and I had to take out egg whites because egg whites are actually high in lectins, and Chile discovered that it was that was causing the heat in my body. So I took it out long enough, allowed my gut to heal. I did take some supplements as well. And then I slowly reintroduced the egg yolk first. And then, I mean, I have eggs fine now, and I don't have them every day. I'll let my gut sort of settle in between, but I might have them every second day. And I'm pretty much 90% carnivore now. Like, it's just so easy. I love it. I feel so good. I carried with me a lot of bloat that I put down to having 5 children. That, you know, I was happy, it was fine, but it was still there until I went carnivore. That was literally 10 centimeters in 3 weeks, just went and hasn't come back off my waist. Yeah, I just feel
good to show, Trace, that you've healed or healing or controlling and managing your Hashimoto's. But I know of quite a few people that have gone carnivore to lose weight and to go into extreme keto, I guess, like the real no vegetables, for bodybuilding or just for that extra protein because they're athletes or whatever, and really getting great benefits from that too. But again, they're probably very healthy and metabolically fit, so they could have a few carbs here and there and it's not going to impact them. So I think it's really good just to show that there's so much opportunity with whatever you may choose, whatever might suit your body or whatever you're trying to heal. For example, we know that low carb is beneficial for diabetes. We know that. Obesity as well. And then healing all those autoimmune diseases, etc. That's fantastic. So if we were to get some top tips from Trace about trying low carb, like where would you start? Like where would we go? Where would we start?
Yeah. And that's interesting because it is often a hard thing for people to do. It's like, I think because we get so overwhelmed and overthink it, we want it to be perfect. We want to make all the changes all at once. And I think for our mind and our body, it's rarely the best way to do it. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm going to tell you to do what works for you and what you see to do. But if you're feeling like you can't start it, definitely break it down and just start with one step. And I'll always recommend to my clients that come to me who are new into low carb to just start with breakfast. Let's get breakfast right. So that's really what we eat. Well, when I say breakfast, I'm talking about the first meal. That first meal that we eat, because, you know, most of your listeners will probably know that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, is a whole lot of rubbish and designed just to get us to eat breakfast cereal. So we throw all that out the window. And when we are hungry, and that first meal we eat is going to set us up for the whole day. So if that first meal is high in sugars and carbs, that's going to set us off on that roller coaster. So up go the blood sugars, up goes insulin, crash, down we come. And a couple of hours later, what are we going to be? Hungry again. So we have to eat again. It's not a true hunger, you know, and really when we are on that roller coaster, it's very, very difficult to tap into our true hunger and fullness signals. So this is where people get a bit confused too, because the ultimate is to be an intuitive eater. When we are carb fueled and our sugar is dysregulated, our blood sugar is dysregulated, it is very, very, very difficult to be that way. But the benefit of consuming more fat, lowering our carbs and sugars and becoming, you know, a fat burner is we actually can start to hear our body when it sends these hunger and fullness signals. It's just it's so different. And it's almost like childbirth. It's very hard to explain to someone, you know, what it's like. You've got to feel it. But it's the same with this. And, you know, like I love it when, you know, a client starts on it and 2 weeks later they come back and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe how good I feel after breakfast, you know, that first meal. I'm not hungry again till like lunchtime. I'm like, amazing, because you're fueling your body with what it needs. So we get that first meal right. And that would be the first thing I would say. Let's, you know, get rid of the cereals and the toast and the mueslis and all that, and try, you know, literally cook up some eggs and bacon, some scrambled eggs, something that's got some natural protein and fat, get some smoked salmon, you know, again, get out of our own way about how we think that first meal should look like, because the first instinct might, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to cook a breakfast. Well, actually you do. So you just got to let that thinking pass and see that when you do, it takes literally 2 minutes to fry up some eggs in a pan in some butter and add some salt, and you're on your way. Or you scramble up some eggs and eat them in the car or something like that. It isn't, you know, that's the stuff that we have to overcome the most, what we think is possible. But just start with that. Once you feel that you've got that and you feel the benefits of having eaten a solid breakfast like that, and that's the other tip I would say, is don't think about quantity. It's just about quality. If we focus on quality, our body will determine the quantity for us. So if we eat, you know, and, you know, we just look at it. And that's what I say to my clients is you want to eat to be satisfied. Like you want to not eat anymore. You couldn't fit any more in. Like, don't just eat because you think, oh, I can't have more than 1 egg, or, you know, what amount should it look like on the plate? That just doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. That's the whole dieting calorie mentality, which, you know, we thought we had to do when we're eating in the wrong way for our body. But now we're going to eat the right way for our body. So we need to eat until we're full, but know that over time, that's going to change. Once insulin is lowered, that's the other important thing to know with insulin, is our fat storage hormone. When insulin is high, when insulin's up, and if it's up all the time, our body's ability to burn fat is lost. It just cannot tap into that fat source, which means pretty much everything you consume, if it's not burnt off straight away, is going to go into your fat cells and your liver. So insulin, I've lost my train of thought of what I was saying now. What was I saying?
About hunger.
Yes. I've forgotten what I was saying, but basically, yes. Yeah, I've completely lost what I was saying, what my tip was. Okay. What was it?
Top tip was eat when hungry until full.
Yep.
Making sure you're getting your fat. If you're you're eating your carbs and you're going to spike.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yes. So you might find, a lot of my clients freak out because they are seemingly eating a lot more once they start doing this, which is very, very normal, because the body's actually going to start getting the protein that it needs, right? So people don't realize our body is designed to keep us hungry until it does get the protein we need. Protein is so essential for our body. So when you start fueling your body right, you may be hungry initially, but once we lower insulin, that's what I was going to say, and our fat cells doors just lift up and our body starts using all that beautiful fuel, our hunger will drop guarantee it. And that's when people naturally then will move into what I call fasting. So I would never, ever, ever recommend someone go straight into fasting. I will always recommend they go step by step, slowly reverse the condition of insulin resistance first, and then start to listen to their body, and guarantee you it becomes a faster. It will just do what it needs to do when it's, metabolically well.
Great tips. That just prompts me to think about something that I experienced a lot when I was converting, and way back when, is you feel lousy when you're converting. And that conversion can take months. And I remember feeling like death, and I just had to persevere, and I was under good guidance and all that sort of stuff, but I just had to persevere. Can you explain that? And then how do we maybe ride through that storm?
Yeah. Well, imagine if you decide to give up smoking. If you're a smoker and you decide to give up smoking, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be a period of detox. So any changes we make, it's going to produce change in the body. But that is actually our body's wisdom. We don't have to fear that. It's actually doing what it needs to do to right itself. So there definitely can be a period of detoxing. If we do it, generally I find if people do it slowly, it can minimize it. But then also there's some factors, and this is one of the great benefits of having someone like a health coach beside you to help you, mitigate that. It's very individual. So no one, there's no blanket rule on what people will feel. But generally, because most of us fear salt, we don't understand the importance of keeping up our electrolytes. And it's particularly important once our insulin lowers, because it's usually the first thing that happens once insulin lowers is we get this big whoosh, because insulin, it keeps water and fluid in our body. But once it lowers, that all comes out. But along with that goes all our salts and our electrolytes. So that often is why people experience what's called the keto flu. But that can be remedied by really making sure, and see, I didn't know this when I first went, but, really making sure you keep your potassium and your sodium and your magnesium intake, quite high. And really, look, I take all that every day now still. I mean, that is, the benefits of those are just so underestimated. Most people are so low in magnesium, and magnesium is essential for so many things in the body. But really, electrolytes, we don't have them. Our body can't make energy. So, if you start lowering your carbohydrates, your body still can't tap into its fat stores yet. You've got no electrolytes in your body. Well, of course, you're going to feel crap. It's just, inevitable, really. But we can overcome it by taking it slowly, making sure we keep our salt, not just water. Water without salt, to me, is just, pointless. Yes, water is fine, but, we need the electrolytes. That's the most important thing we need. And just not to fear it. Really, we can really say to ourselves, wow, yes, this is going to get headaches, or I don't feel too well, but I know I'm going to come out the other end, because you will come out the other end. And it's like this veil just lifts, or this fog. You remember the fog? How many times people say, oh, I didn't even know I was living in this fog. Well, of course you are, because that's the brain. It can be insulin resistance as well, and that's such a common thing. It's not getting enough energy because of insulin resistance. So when we reverse all that, it's like, wow, it's
into that feeling that you and I both know. Like you might have a relapse. I'm sorry about this, but you just go into these little zones, and you might have a binge weekend, or you've got a lot of parties and you've got a lot of things on, and you're drinking a bit too much alcohol or whatever, and then you just get back into normal life. But you still might even have sometimes that foggy brain, or that little reaction, and it takes a little while to kick back in. I'm talking days, not months like it used to. But I think the biggest thing for me was just take your time, just relax into it. You've got your resources, you've got fantastic resources there to explain all of this on your website and through all the channels that you do work with. But Yeah, fantastic. Start slow. Listen to your body is my biggest thing. So it's all about how the things make me feel. So when I'm eating something, what energy levels do I have if I've exercised? And, you know, I just eat to hunger all the time now. Like I could go 1 meal a day, or I can do 2. And sometimes I might feel a little bit hungrier, so I go 3. But it's taken years to get to that point where I just eat to hunger. Yeah, when you're starting out, start small.
Yeah, start small. I mean, it's so easy to fall into that. Oh, I want to be where you are. Well, you just got to be where you are.
Yeah.
You know, where you are is absolutely, you're meant to be there, but it's your journey, and you just try and keep your eyes on your path, one step in front, one day at a time. It's almost one meal at a time.
Yeah.
And you will get there 100%. Yeah.
And the other thing, a final thing for me was, it's all about quality and making sure that you're fueling your plate's built properly. So that was the other thing as well going forward. But that's another chat. Thanks so much, Trace. That was absolutely
You're welcome.
Fantastic insights into low carb, why we do it. There's many reasons. We should all just play around with it. And there's no one size fits all. And yeah, just listen to our bodies, and by all means reach out to either of us, and you know, the platforms that you provide with more info. But thanks for coming on.
Awesome.
Another chat.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.